What is a Tonfa and why does a single weapon need its own unique skill in GURPS? Why not just use a stick or brass knuckles? Why does this weapon exist? How to get most out of it and how to make it cooler? I'll try to answer all these questions in this video, so stay tuned. First, what is a Tonfa? Basically, it's a baton with a protruding handle on one side. It uses its own Tonfa skill, which is an average difficulty skill that defaults to short sword -3. In the basic set, it doesn't even have a stat line. It's just a baton with some additional rules, but GURPS Low-Tech and GURPS Martial Arts reworked the rules, so let's talk about them instead of confusing ourselves with the old rules. While both of these books have the same stat line that you see on the screen right now, GURPS Martial Arts describes all the special rules for Tonfa fighting. For example, it says that Fast Draw Tonfa is its own skill specialty. Tonfa is a unique weapon because it can be wielded in 3 different grips. This is my using information from GURPS Martial Arts and the internet, because the book only provides rules for 2 grips. The first grip looks like this. You grab the handle and a long part of the Tonfa extends from you. While this is the normal grip for the purpose of rules, real-world Tonfa fighters call this a secondary or reverse grip. When you wield it this way, you use the Tonfa skill to attack and parry, which permits both swing and thrust attacks. However, you may use brawling or karate parry, if better than the usual weapon parry. Even if you use brawling or karate to parry, you treat it as an armed parry, which is a very good bonus. Since a Tonfa weighs 1.5 pounds, it can even parry axes without worrying about breakage. Swings only strike at reach 1, while thrusts work both at reach 1 and in close combat, which is good. Damage, however, is not impressive. This grip also allows you to use armed grapple and, as suggested by GURPS Martial Arts, the arm lock technique and those similar to it. Remember that switching between a one-handed and two-handed grip required for armed grapple is a ready maneuver unless you have the grip mastery perk. The second grip looks like this. You grasp it by the handle and hold it against the forearm. For real-world Tonfa fighters, this is the primary grip, but in GURPS this is the reverse grip. And you do not even use the Tonfa skill for this grip. You use brawling, karate or dexterity to jab with the butt of the weapon, or to parry. You can only thrust in this grip, and only in close combat, but the attack receives damage bonuses for brawling or karate, exactly as if it were an unarmed strike. How does one switch between these 2 grips? You do it with a ready maneuver or as a free action with a reverse grip technique. However, Tonfa is a special skill even in this aspect. Since its handle makes switching between these 2 grips more easy, instead of rolling against reverse grip, you can just roll against your unmodified Tonfa skill to do it. This has several advantages over the reverse grip technique. The first one is that you do not drop your weapon on a failed roll. You just spend the entire turn changing grips. A critical failure does not injure you, but just makes you drop the weapon. And most importantly, reverse grip has a default of -6, which is huge. With the Tonfa skill you have no penalty at all. However, if you buy the Technique Mastery perk for reverse grip, you can improve this grip change aspect above the actual Tonfa skill. Honestly, I'd rather just buy up the skill. You should keep in mind that even though the grip change can be a free action, you can do it only once per turn. Once you have changed your grip, you stay with that grip until your next turn. The additional benefit of wielding a Tonfa in this grip is improved defenses. You parry with brawling or karate with no penalty, even against armed attacks, because the Tonfa was designed for it. And even if you fail the parry, the opponent can choose to either hit the original target or the weapon, so it's much harder to get your arms crippled when parrying this way. Remember that brawling parries are at -3 against swung weapons, so a Tonfa gives you an effective +3 bonus to parry in such situations. And if you are using karate, then you enjoy the improved +3 bonus when performing a retreating parry with a Tonfa. This is amazing. Encumbrance penalties can be a nuisance, but they are relatively easy to overcome. You can also strike with the other end to the rear when wielding a Tonfa in this grip. This enjoys a +1 bonus to damage, but obeys the usual rules for a wild swing or a back strike. I forgot to mention that Tonfas usually are wielded in pairs, and when wielding them in reverse grip, you are using unarmed skills for combat, and those do not have the offhand penalties, unless you are using the harsh realistic rules for unarmed combatants. That means that dual wielding is much easier for you. You could also wield a Tonfa in the normal grip in your primary hand, and a Tonfa in reverse grip in the offhand, getting the best of both grips. That would require you to invest in the Tonfa skill though. And there is the third grip that is not mentioned in GURPS, but is mentioned on Wikipedia and other internet resources. You grab it by the shaft and use it as a baton with a hook. It is said that this is a very uncommonly used grip, but I am surprised that GURPS omits it, because hooked weapons are all over the place in GURPS martial arts. This will use the slightly adjusted baton stat line, and will be using the short sword skill. As I mentioned, the handle can be used as a hook. I have talked about hooks in my axe video, but to reiterate shortly, you can hook a limb or head to unbalance the enemy, you can hook a weapon to disarm the enemy, or you can hook a shield to move it out of the way or to unready it. Hook is a good technique, but it requires some investment to be used effectively. If we go by rules as written, then switching between the first and third grips is a free action, because it switches weapon skills without changing the number of hands, but I think that this makes no sense in this situation. I would require a ready maneuver. And that's all GURPS has for Tonfas. They definitely are not excellent weapons, but they still are quite versatile, especially when you take the fact that they were used when other weapons were outlawed into account. As you could see, if you're playing a monk or a martial artist, a pair of Tonfas doesn't harm your wallet much, but greatly increases your defensive and offensive potential. And you do not even have to buy the Tonfa skill at all. But let's get tricky, we're playing fantasy games after all. I wrote up 3 variants of this weapon. The first one is the spiked Tonfa that sports a blade on its short end. Dealing impaling damage with a butt jab is nice. The second one is the bladed Tonfa, that basically is a dual-bladed short sword with a side handle. And the third one is a spring-loaded Tonfa, a normal Tonfa that can also act as something like a pistol crossbow. I think such variants would be great for a fantasy ninja. But anyway, that's it for this video. I learned a lot about this weapon when making this video, and I hope that I got you interested in this underutilized GURPS weapon. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.